Okay, everybody, welcome back on coffee. So now that you're all nicely sat down, this session's actually going to be much more of a breakout session. There's a room down the hall that we're going to use called Momentum, which is sort of down. If you know where the bar is, just continue past the bar and it's on your left hand side, and it's a sort of round table room that is better for kind of conversations, but unfortunately not very good for the kind of AV setup. So this is about the kind of the first contact, first impressions are kind of a long lasting, right? So imagine the scenario which happens literally all the time. A researcher comes out, reaches out to you and just says, there's some sort of contact. It may be, why is the computer not working? It might be, can you help me with this specific thing? I'd like to use RSCF for this. Would HPC fit my work? These things come through, many different ways. Okay, and you basically go, hey, well, let's go sit down, have a coffee, and chat about what it is you're actually trying to do. So, and how are you going to kind of go in and sort of progress that conversation with the academic? They may be asking for something that's really, really simple that they think is really, really hard. They may be asking for the moon on a stick, and they want it tomorrow or yesterday. And you've got to figure out a way of keeping those people engaged, even though the expectations may be very different on different sides. Basically, hopefully what we'll end up doing is we will put an academic on each of the tables out there. In Zoom, I hope there is at least one or more academics online. If those people who are academics that are online, raise their hand or indicate to the AV team that they're an academic, they're willing to kind of be, then they can lead a breakout room. But when I say lead they can be in a breakout room. I would suggest that we have people take it maybe in turns to have that kind of conversation with the academic. Other people maybe want to observe and give feedback to those, and then change around those kind of conversations. So, Martin,
hello.
Do you having had many conversations with academics of your career, have you got any tips or things that it may be worth having a go trying?
Yes, I do. So, okay. I'm actually going to say we're going to have sort of generally two roles here. So there's a bunch of academics who are going to be interviewed. And we're going to say to the academics, be a good interviewee. Okay. Don't be obstructive. The purpose of the conversation is to have a two-way interchange. So help the research facilitator help you. I think that's going to be my first bit of advice. Generally speaking, we would go to these interviews because we're desperate for some help, we're desperate for some support. But sometimes academics, we can be a bit spiky sometimes, can't we? It might be one of those bad days. So help out the research facilitators. So that's going to be my first bit of advice. I made some notes, so I've got some things written down. What did I say? Let's have a look. Okie dokie. So research facilitators. I think the first thing is you're not going to have this opportunity, but if you're going to meet a researcher for the first time, find out a little bit about them in advance. Find out what their research domain is. They're almost certainly going to have an information page on their department website that's going to have perhaps their most recent publications, grants, etc., a little bit about them. If they're not, which is unlikely, let's see if you can find them on LinkedIn. I'm not asking you to go and stalk them. That will be strange and peculiar, but do find out a little bit about them. And then perhaps just have a little bit of a scan read of their latest paper so that you're not going into this cold. So find out about them. Don't rush. Okay, take your time and let the conversation flow as organically as you can. I mean, we're going to rush today, but if it means that you have to have a second conversation sometime later on to let everything settle in your mind, then that's perfectly fine. We'd much prefer that, wouldn't we? Because what we want is that we want to establish a relationship with you. It isn't transactional. Most academics are desperate to work with digital research infrastructure colleagues and see them as colleagues. I think that's an important consideration. We said that on the panel this morning. We want to see you as colleagues. So what else? So the idea is that you're going to try and establish what the problem is that your research colleague has and use your professional judgment to describe that in computational terms. Now, some of us are computer scientists, some of us are mathematicians, but you're going to be talking to people in your careers from the biological sciences, from the arts and humanities. There's a lot of digital humanities work going on at the moment. And they might not be as practiced in expressing things in computational terms. So your job is to try and convert the research problem, the idea, the issues that the researcher has into something that's a little bit more computational. So that's going to need a lot of phrasing and rephrasing and asking of questions on both sides. So, we'd expect to see very much a two-way interchange of conversation going on here. Now, this is a dangerous one, in that computer scientists especially, we're convinced we know how to solve the problem already. And you know what? We're wrong a lot of the time. So do ask people how they think the problem might be solved. But don't be frightened to not tell them they're wrong. We don't like to be told we're wrong, but we do like to be given alternatives, okay? Yeah, computer scientists, dangerous people, don't ask them for an opinion. I think whilst you're having this conversation as well, you've got to try and assess their ability. Quite a lot of academics will seem very confident and very competent, but there'll be glaring gaps in their knowledge, especially around things that will be very fundamental to you. Things like version control, for example. Basic software engineering stuff that you people think, how could anybody not think that's a thing? There will be a massive gap in the skill set of some academics. And I think the last thing really there, the assessing the ability thing is perhaps another part of your consultancy pack as well. To have a think, well, I know that we need to be offer training and support and consultancy more widely across our research institutes. So is the training that we're doing, can I signpost some of that to this researcher or people in their group to help them develop the skills to make the most of what it is that we're going to develop with them or develop for them. And I think probably the last thing there as well is that as you're having this conversation, be very careful about making assumptions. We're very good at sort of thinking, getting an opinion of people from that very first initial meeting, but step back from yourself a little while and attempt to identify some of the assumptions that we make. And at various points during that conversation, state back those assumptions. So I'm assuming that should be something that you say quite regularly, and give the academic, the person that you're interviewing, an opportunity to agree with that or to disagree. So that by the time you've had this conversation, you've gone from probably knowing very little about what your research colleague wants to knowing a little bit more. And I would say that you're almost certainly going to need to have a second or a third conversation as you go forward. But I would say the first time round, being on both sides of the table here, your job, and the thing that I would want somebody from digital research teams within the university to do, is to establish a relationship with me, to help me feel as though I'm loved and wanted, that we have a possibility of working together in the future. So I think they would be my recommendations, Alan.
Okay, thanks, Martin. And I will give you the get out of jail card right before you leave, which is if you absolutely get completely lost and everything starts going over your head, he's like, what? Just say, please can you explain that to me like I'm 12, right? Okay, so breakout groups online and down the hall on the left, the momentum room. So under the pendulum, just past the bar on the left-hand side, round tables. Thank you.